Hello, everyone. Hello, 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 hello. I know it said there's an error. Don't know why it's saying that, but but anywho, good evening, everyone. How are you? It's a long weekend here in Canada. It's Friday evening. I hope you guys have a blessed week. I know that it's a bit exhausting for me working with children. It's a bit exhausting, but it's very rewarding job. I couldn't see myself doing anything else, and I love my job. I love working with the youths and the young children because as a foundation, you're building a positive foundation there and setting the pathway for them to embark upon a bright and promising future. Once that pathway has been influenced by positive people that are in their lives. I just want to come here and to talk about children are a gift. And they sure are. I got three most amazing children. Now, all children are perfect, but they come in different packages. And you have to accept them for who they are and also meet them where they're at and able to support them in a positive direction and guide them. And you have to be their guidance. I know sometimes children do some things that we find cute, but later on become problematic. And we need to correct it before they grow older, because when they grow older, it's very hard and difficult for you to correct them, because there's a saying that, well, the tree, you have to bend the tree while it's young, because when it get older you can't bend it no more, because it's already grow into a strong firm the way it is. You cannot bend it. It's for you to bend it, it's going to take a lot of work to bend that tree. But when children, I know there's parents nowadays are having, a lot of parents nowadays are having, not all parents, but a lot of parents nowadays are having difficulty in the way they are raising their children. And they are using digital technology to kind of, if they're misbehaving or if they're having a temper tantrum, they will give them the technology immediately to let them be quiet. But that's not solving the problem. That's creating a bigger issue. We have to find ways of helping children cope and able to help them to talk, because nowadays children don't really talk about their problems, especially if they feel that it's been threatening and if you're not listening to them. And it's best to listen to your children. So if you're not listening to them, they're gonna find that you're not easy to talk to. Your children. You can be your children's friend, and you can also set a boundary where they know that you are authority figure, where they have to listen to you when it's time to listen. So there has to be a boundary that you have to set, and you let that child know when this is when time to do this, and this is the time when mommy or daddy have fun together and with the children, and there's a time when mommy and daddy means what they're saying. And when you give a rule or you give an order or telling them to do something, you expect them to follow through it. Sometimes they will challenge your authority figure and believe that you're probably joking. If you laugh it out one time and they said, oh, you know what, mommy or daddy's just playing games, or they're just joking, they don't take it seriously, then they would push the boundaries and try to go a little bit further. So you have to say what you mean and do what you say you're going to do. Say what you mean and do what you say you're going to do, and make sure you follow through, and do not until that child follows through. Then you know that you have that child in the correct way. It's so difficult and so heartbreaking when I go to the mall and I see a lot of children who are being very defiant. If they want a toy, they don't get it. It's like kicking and screaming, hitting the parents, slapping the parents in the face, and no respect. Because they said whatever happened at home happened outside. So my grandmother said that if you don't learn to dance at home, then you can't go outside to dance. So if they were correcting the child from in the home, then the child wouldn't come outside and slap parents in the face and be disrespectful. So therefore, you have to correct the child when he's wrong. And the Bible said that do not spoil the child. It said, do not spoil the child and spare the rod. So that means that the child needs to be corrected. You have to correct the child. And if you don't correct the child, then what will happen? You'll find a child on your hand that's going to be problematic in school when that child gets to kindergarten, or because I teach kids in kindergarten. And I have a lot of kids come from different walk of life into my classroom, and I have to correct some of the stuff that parents have not corrected. And the thing is that if you don't correct them at a very young age, you're going to have a lot of issue on the hand. And I noticed that parents, in my classroom, kids like to go to the digital technology. And what happened, there is time for digital technology and there's time for teaching your children. And sometimes we said, oh, they're so young, they're so cute, let them have it, they're learning a lot. There's nothing wrong with having them learning about digital technology. It's perfectly fine, because this is the world. We are living a digital world, and this is the way it's going. This is the way it's going. So therefore, we have to support them. But there needs to be a balance. You cannot have digital technology all the time and they forget about the foundation, like reading a book, using pencils, using a paper, writing story, using their imagination. And the digital technology, the imagination creates itself for them. They don't get to think for themselves anymore. They depend on technology. So if we're not creating an environment to support those foundation, those simple foundation in life, it's going to be very challenging for your children when you're sending them off to kindergarten. And then you're going to have a lot of problematic children that are growing up, that are being defiant to authority figure, not respecting their home. So therefore, when they go, so they're not respecting others. And they said, no, they will grow out of it. No, but you have to correct the child when the child is young, because the Bible says that, when I read in the book of Luke 18, verse 16, it's talk about that, suffer the little children to come unto me and forbid them not, for such is the kingdom of God. The reason why Jesus said that in the New Testament is because the disciples saw that the mothers were bringing the children to their father, to Jesus Christ, to bless them. And the disciple believed that there's a place and time for children, and that was not the place and time for them to bring their children. And Jesus was moved with compassion and was very saddened in his heart to know that they were pushing the children away. And what he realized when that happened, he said, bring them to me so I can bless them. And it's good to bring your children to church and have them blessed, because you have that covering over them. But doesn't mean it stopped there. It doesn't stop there. You have to continually praying for them, cover them underneath your blood, and interceding on their behalf, because they don't know to intercede on their behalf. So you have to keep on covering them with the blood of Jesus. And if you're not teaching them the way of the Lord and teaching them the fear of God, there's something else gonna be teaching them, and they're gonna adapt to something else. So therefore, remember, there's two, spiritual being in this world. And if we don't, the one that you feed is the one you win. So if you're going to feed your children with the things of the world and not feeding them with the things of the kingdom of God, they're going to take on a whole different way of learning the things of the world, forget about God. And that's why the Bible said he will not visit the fourth generation, because they don't know him. And in my classroom, when you talk, we're not, the school board I'm in, we're not allowed to talk about different religion and different I see that we'll talk about a different culture, religion in the school, but you're forbidden to talk about Christianity. You can't talk about Jesus who died on the cross. You cannot talk about if you wear a cross and the children ask you about it, like if the crucifixion cross. And I know I don't worship the crucifixion. It's just to symbolize that I'm a Christian and my life speaks for itself. But if we talk about it and to tell children about it, it's forbidden, because if they go home and talk to their parents that this is what they learned, we get in trouble. We've been disciplined for talking about Christ in school, but yet still they allowed you to talk about family of the same sex, where the Bible is totally disagree on, and they expect you to talk about bring up different religion in it, but when you talk about Christianity, it's a problem. I'm kind of baffled by that, because why talk about another culture but you're not talk about Christianity? Nobody want to hear about. In the school they talk about the Easter, where they talk about it's no longer discussed that it's Christ who died for humanity and take the sin on his shoulder. Easter is discussed as the Easter bunny, fake story, Easter bunny. That this is the time when Easter bunny come around, lay eggs, and it's chocolate. And a lot of these kids are brainwashed that Easter bunny is actually real, and they lay eggs for children to go hunt for and enjoy. I know it's an activity, but why not put Christ in it? They don't do that anymore. Nobody want to hear about Christ anymore. Nobody wants to teach their children the way of the Lord. Why? Is it because they're embarrassed about it? I don't know. They have their own personal reason. I don't know, because I don't want to be a judge of anyone. But then again, if you're not teaching your children the way of the Lord, then what are you teaching them? Because therefore, if you're not teaching them the way of the Lord, there must be something else that actually teaching them. And what happened? You're going to have children who are living in a lost world. And when I look, I met a couple. She was Christian and her husband is Muslim. And I was like, okay, how you're Christian, you believe in Jesus Christ, but your husband doesn't believe in it. So where are you going to go with? How are you going to teach your children? Your kids are going to be confused. And she said, well, she teach her children, but the Bible also said it's a husband to teach the children and discipline them, right? So therefore it was a misconception that not really following the way of the Lord, and not really following the way, the Bible, because we have to follow what the Bible said. It's a guidance for us, right? And if we're not doing that, it's been misconstrued by lot of couples and couples and the way they are growing children. One parents will say one thing and the other parents will say another thing, because children do challenge their parents, because they want to see what the other parents say. So they will bring you against each other, and they would split family apart, they split relationship apart. So therefore, you have to lay down the rules. Whatever mommy said, that's what goes. Whatever daddy said, that's what goes. And you both have to be on the same accord. Even at that time, say, for example, you're not agreeing about it, that it's correct, but you have to agree with your spouse at that time when you discipline your child. But when the child walk away, you both go in conference and you talk about it. When you talk about it and say, you know what, I think we could work out it this way without creating any argumentation or animosity between both parents, you talk about it away from the children. And sometimes you get into the edict of the conversation where it's at that time you just want to jump in to say something because you find that something is wrong. If it comes to where the child is being physically abused, I would say step in right away, because that shouldn't be happening, and discipline the child in the correct way. Also, the Bible says, do not spoil the child and spare the rod. So sometimes some kids need some good slapping, because you got some rude, fresh mud kids out there that will tell you some things that you wonder if this was a 4-year-old or a 3-year-old talking to you, or a grown-up. And where do they get those language from? They must be getting it from somewhere, because sometimes when you come into the classroom, there's a lot of kids come from different walk of life, and therefore what happened, they learn from each other. So if we are not going to teach them the right thing, guess what? The children out there who are coming from different backgrounds will teach them also. So therefore, we have to teach the children at home before we send them to school. Make sure you lay that foundation, because parents are the first teachers for their children. And if you're not being the mom and dad and teaching them the right thing, they are going to come to school and we will see it. And that's where the problem will happen, because sometimes we have conversation during group meeting and we'll ask, how is your week? How is your night? What did they eat for dinner? And they start a conversation because they feel comfortable talking to us, and we're there to protect them. So therefore, teach your children the right thing. And when they come, they know the right thing. There's a lot of amazing children out there, and there's a lot of children who have been misused, abused. And we are there to protect them. If we see any abuse, then we call a system that will step in and then help the parents, not take away the child, but help the parents in parenting that child, and give them that support that they need. They'll give them a group meeting, a group where they can go and get other parents who talk about similar problem that they're going through. And they will talk about the behavior that they're having and how can they handle it, because you learn from each other. We're here on earth to learn from each other. It doesn't matter about your education background. It doesn't matter how your education is or how low your education is. Some parents who have less education than the one that has more education, the one that has more education messed up a lot of times with their children. The one that have the less education are teaching their children in the right way, but some things they do mess. They're not getting everything right. So we learn from each other. So sometimes we look and say, okay, I have a better background. I have a better educational background. So therefore, you can speak to me in certain ways. No, they're not going to disrespect it, but you can listen to their opinion, and you can listen to the ideas and ways that they deal with their children at home. So therefore, I just want to say that children are a gift from God. They need nurturing. They need to be cared for, and they need to be loved. They need someone who can be there and listen to them, especially listen to them. I know sometimes they blob on and they say a lot of things, and you're probably coming from a day that is exhausted and you're tired. I know I'm one of those parents too. I'm not perfect. And you come from a long day, will be talking, and you wonder when is the story gonna end? Sometimes you block, like you lose concentration of what they're saying and thinking about something else. And then they said, "Do you hear what I said, Mama?" You're like, "Oh, yes, yes, I heard what you say. But what was Johnny doing again?" And it was like repeat the same. They start from the beginning and they start all over again. And you say, "Oh boy, why did I ask that kind of question?" But I want to encourage parents out there, despite of what your child is going through, or if you have any problem in school, be the supporter for that child. Don't give up on them. There's no problem that is too hard for God to solve it. Bring it to God in prayer. Bring it to your Heavenly Father in prayer. Your Heavenly Father is the one that created that child, and your Heavenly Father will step in and help you correct that issue and put them on the right pathway. But if you're not having God involved in the situation, then the situation will not get solved. First, you have to, everything you do, the Bible says everything you do, put it before God. So if you put in your problems and the situation before God, I'm sure I know sometimes it doesn't work out instantly at the same time. And some situations are easy to solve and some situations are very challenging. And it takes time to solve situations, especially when it comes to young children, because their environment are being changed. And your younger children are like old people. They don't like anything to change in their environment. So therefore, when things are changing in their environment, they get defiant, they get reluctant, they don't want to anything change. They challenge your authority, but you have to keep focused and keep on doing what you're doing that you know that will best and help that child and to support that child. Don't give up. Don't do it today and tomorrow you don't do it. tomorrow you just leave it alone. You have to constantly be on top of it. Be on top of it. It's a lot of work and it might be draining at time, but this is the best interest of that child. You don't want to walk away and that child is not, because if you leave, if you don't take care of the situation or the problem, guess who's going to take care of it? Society will take care of it. You leave it in the hand for the police officers to take care of it, because when that child starts to give trouble or giving problem out there, then the system will correct it. And then that's where his life just went down the tube. A perfectly healthy baby, bouncing baby boy or girl that you have, because of you're not being a properly parent or able to, you're never ready. No one is really prepared to be a parent. You learn along the way and you learn from others. So I want to encourage parents now, don't give up on your child. Know your child for yourself. Don't let others know your child before you. Know your child for yourself. Get involved in their lives. Sometimes we get so busy at times and we don't really have that much time, because the system is set up in a way where you have to constantly working to keep a roof over your head, to keep food on the table, to keep clothes on your back, and to keep them in different sport activity if you can afford it. So don't give up. Keep on supporting your kids. And sometimes they believe that you're not there to you're not supporting them because you don't really show up to their games, but they're working hard to keep a roof over their head. So not all the time you can really show up to their game, but show up to their game, and be their support. Be their support as they grow older in life. They do need your support and they do need to talk. And it's hard sometimes. I know sometimes parents will say you grow your children and then they just walk away. They turn their back on you. They're not remembering you. But you know what? You have done your best. Just leave it in God's hand and let God do the rest. Because you know what? God is the one who will speak into that child's spirit. And when he's speaking to that child's spirit, things will change. Things will change. Things will change, and things have to change when God is involved. And when you give it to God in prayer. You take it to him in prayer and things will change. And I've seen it many times. And I tell you a story about my oldest son, that he was having a lot of challenge in elementary school. From grade 1, I noticed there's a big change because you leave from kindergarten to grade 1. And then it was a little bit of issue that is happening where they will say they become very loud in the classroom, and they will sometimes disturb the classroom. Sometimes you will be involved in other children conversation that is none of his concern. And he always wants to solve problems, but then sometimes solving problem get himself in trouble as well. Then it go up to grade 3 when it becomes a nag, because every day I hear complaint. And I'm like, what's going on? So I stepped in. I was stepping in from the beginning, but I was watching the situation to see if it would change. But then it get to grade 3 when they were complaining a lot. And I'm like, okay, what's going on? So then I investigated on all the teacher was doing. I was complaining, this is what he's doing, this is what he's doing. And so, okay, how are you supporting? They said they need support. So I went ahead and take their advice and take him to the doctor. And I was telling them they write a letter and tell them what the issue was, that he's not managing. So right away they want to put him on a medication called Ritalin. I think it's Ritalin or Ritalin, one of those medication that calm your children. That's not solving the problem. That's turning the kid into a zombie. So I said to them, I am not putting him on any medication whatsoever until I do a completely checkup on him. I have a perfectly healthy, bouncy baby boy. The system went wrong somewhere. So then I go a little bit further and investigate it. When I find out that it was in the very back of the class, I'm like, why you were in the back of the class? And that's where his seat was. Then I realized at home, because our family is kind of a bit loud talkers, so when we talk loud, you will hear. Then one day I started calling him very low, with a low tone of voice, and he couldn't hear. He didn't hear me. And I'm like, didn't you hear me calling you? And he said, no, mommy, I didn't hear you. And I'm like, okay, something is going on here. So I take him I went back to the doctor, and I told the doctor that, I don't know, we need to get his hearing checked. So before we get his hearing check, we take him to another specialist, and she was recommending the same medication for him. And I said to her, would you give that medication to your own children? And she looked at me, well, we're not talking about my children, right? I said, yes, we are talking, because you're talking about my child that you want to put him on medication, which is not going to happen. So I said, would he give you to? And she said, no. She said, well, we're not talking about it. And because my son was he loved to dance. So she was determining his future right away, that the only thing he's going to grow up to be when he get older is to go into drama school in university, or if he make it to university. I'm like, what? So you're already determine his future for him. I'm like, no, he can be in university just like any other student who are smart. And I said to her, you can take that medication and give it to your own children. Not saying everybody to do that, but for me, I know the grounds where that I stand, and I know who I am, and I know who my child is, and I know what he's capable of, because I know who he is. So then I take it a little further. I ignore it, take back the letter to the doctor. They send the letter to the school, and they tell the school what I said. The school said, but Ms. Eccleston, you need the support for your child. I said, yeah, I understand that I need the support for my child, but not this problem. To solve the problem is not put him on medication. Not saying not every kid probably need it, but I'm just saying that first, look at all the other solutions first before you went to one that solve the problem immediately. You want that one solution, they say put him on medication. So I went to another doctor, and I said, you know what, I'm going to do an hearing test. So I take him to a doctor to do an hearing test. Come to find out, when the doctor did an hearing test on him, the kid was deaf as a skunk. What happened is that instead of his wax drain down, like drain out, his ears drum is set up in a way where it drained back. So from the time he was, and back in those days in 1997, they never used to do hearing tests on babies. Now they're doing it because they find it that's where a lot of issues are going wrong. So when they take his wax was draining back, so all that years has been clogging and piling up and becoming hard as a shell. So what the doctor was telling me, the hearing doctor was saying that he couldn't hear a thing, and that's where the behavior is happening, because he can't hear, so he speaks very loudly, and they think he's disrupting the class. But because he can't hear, you have to speak loudly, and he missed 3 years of math. And I was like, oh my goodness. So therefore, when the doctor cleaned out the earring, to clean out the wax, they were so hard, like stone dropping on the table, and it was so much in a pile that they were cleaning out. So now I have to they told me to get olive oil, warm it a little bit, and pour it in his ears, a little drop in his ears every night, to make sure it clear up and the wax falls down, drain down. And from then I said, okay, now I can put him in a support class where you have to work his way up. For 3 years he was in the support class, and now the foundation was built from there, and he was going from that area to now he was bored in the class because what they were teaching him, he already get it, and he needs more challenging. So if you don't challenge a kid, what will happen? The behavior will start again. So if he's bored, he's gonna have behavior issue. So he said, Mommy, I'm bored in the class, I need to get out of the class. And I said, okay, what did you tell the teacher? And they said, yes, but the teacher ain't doing anything. So then I booked another appointment at the school, and I said I need to have a meeting with the principal and also with the teacher. We have the meeting. They said, well, let him stay in it some, because they think he can work some more. I said, no, he's bored in the class. He needs to get out. But when they said, okay, they were reluctantly to take him out, but I was a parent. Don't give up. I will push until things happen. If you're not going to hear me, I go above you. And that's the kind of parent I am. So what I did is, I said, he needs to come on. It was the middle, almost the close of the end of the year. I said, he's going to finish off the year, and he's going into the regular stream. He went to the regular stream. They thought he would have never get it. That child graduate the elementary school with honors. Okay, he moved on into into high school, graduate there with honors, and went off to college. Now he's in university studying to be a pediatrician. So if I wasn't pushing and saying that I know my child, they would have put him into a classroom that he don't deserve to be in. And they would get, if I give up on him, then I leave him for the system to raise him. No, the system did not give me the child. God gave me that child. So God gave me that child. So therefore, take the necessary effort to support your child and to encourage them and be their supporter. Always be their supporter. No matter what, I keep on pushing my kids that they can do more than they think they can. They may settle for a B, you push them to get an A. Because it's in them. You just have to pull it out of them. Just I want to leave that with you tonight. I know it's very long, but I just want to let you know that Jesus said, suffer the little children to come unto me and forbid them not, for such is the kingdom of heaven. And if we cannot be like the children, as children, there's no way we will enter heaven ourselves too. So, we have to humble ourselves as a child. And just as children, they may have issues, and later on, within 5 minutes, they forget about it and they be friends again with the child that they have an issue with. But I'm just saying to you that be encouraged as parents. God didn't give you that child for you to ignore him or to neglect him or to abuse him. God bless you with that child for you to nurture him, love he or she, care for them, and give them the best that you can give to them. Doesn't matter if you're rich or you're poor, you can do the best you can do to make sure that child has a healthy and bright future, and make sure their pathway are paved properly for them and their foundation are built. And make sure that the school that you're sending your child to, check it out before you send them to that school. Because that school you send them to that not good for your child could end up ruining their whole future. If they don't have a connection with their teacher, sometimes it's good to have a fresh start. There's nothing wrong with starting afresh. There's nothing wrong with starting with an I did it with my children, transfer them to a different school, let them have a fresh start. Once they have a fresh start, and let's work from there. And then just do your best that you can do, and be patient with them. Be patient with them. It takes a lot of patience to raise a child. Just as they said, it takes a village to raise a child. So if you don't have any support, be patient with them and grow them in the way of the Lord. Don't forget that. Grow your children in the way of the Lord. Always put God in their life, in the forefront of their life, because that will use as their guidance. He's positive, and he will speak into their spirit, and you know that they will come out to be healthy, perfectly child, and graduate from school with honors, because Jesus Christ sent the angels to watch over them. Be blessed. Have a wonderful night or a wonderful morning wherever you are. And, if you have any questions, you can always shout out a question to me. If I can answer it, I will. And if I can't, I will actually research it and speak to my colleagues about it and get back to you. Have a blessed night. Love you. Take care. God bless you.